Yo, what's happening, guys? How the heck are you doing? Welcome back to Rule of Two Review, and today let's talk more about the Nintendo and the Switch and Mr. Miyamoto. So over the last day or two, a lot of us probably know, but Shigeru Miyamoto came out and actually made a statement that apparently it was a much younger team within Nintendo that actually focused on the development and ultimate production of the Nintendo Switch. Pretty interesting information, and it kind of falls in line with a lot of what we heard from Nintendo and even Miyamoto over the last few years. We know that there was talk about him sort of retiring or stepping down as far as a leadership or a software development role at Nintendo. This was probably, I want to say, circa 2010 or 11, maybe not that far back. But in the last couple of years, that was something that he had outwardly discussed doing, as kind of a changing of the guard, so to speak. And they definitely talked about, at that time, having some of the newer, younger developers start to step up with more responsibility and leading bigger projects. Well, now comes the word that potentially the project that the younger guys are leading is the biggest project within Nintendo, and that is a development of their brand new home console, which we now know is the Nintendo Switch. And I have to say that I think that that's pretty cool. Now, I love Miyamoto, and I don't want anything about Miyamoto to change. A lot of people do. Over the last few years, he's become a little bit more divisive because, admittedly, some of his design choices in the games and stuff that he's recently made maybe haven't worked out all that perfectly for everybody. The best recent example, of course, is Star Fox Zero. Now, I love Star Fox Zero. I think it's a great game. I wish that a couple of things were done differently. I wish that the controls, as great as they were at least optional. I think that would have been huge, and I certainly would have loved an online mode. The choice to maybe downgrade some of the visuals for the sake of the control, I am totally okay with. But if I was to create the perfect Star Fox in my brain, I would kind of just like the prettier version of that game, and I could maybe sacrifice the crazy controls for just the more standard controls. Not so much because I don't like stepping outside my own box for control schemes, but more just because Star Fox has already grounded itself as a regular game with a regular control scheme, and I didn't need an already established game to change. I would rather them have made a brand new flying and shooting game and incorporated those controls. That being said, I still love Star Fox Zero, but man, that game sure didn't work for everybody, and that was all Miyamoto's choice. So it's for those reasons and other ones, some of the failures of the Wii U and just the direction Nintendo might have been going the last few years, that some people feel like maybe Miyamoto isn't quite the powerhouse he once was, or maybe he doesn't have the vision that aligns with the modern sensibilities of today's modern gamer. And so the idea of him maybe not being involved with some of Nintendo's most important projects might get them excited, and I can understand why. It does make me excited, but not necessarily for those same reasons. What's interesting to me is that when Miyamoto discussed the younger team taking over kind of development of Nintendo's new console, which again became the Switch, one of the things he mentioned is how he's been so focused on developing things like Super Mario Run, the deal with Apple, and what's going on with the Universal theme parks. And I found that to be one of the most interesting and telling sentiments that he expressed in this quote and in this interview, because it tells me that he's becoming way more of the business side of Nintendo than the development side of Nintendo, because really, those are the business decisions. Those are the choices that are now branding Nintendo outward outside of the gaming space. They talked many years ago, even Iwata himself said this when he was still around, how they were starting to open themselves up to the idea of licensing out their characters and properties and just their brand, their identity to other avenues, because there's a lot of potential there. And that was always true. And as soon as I heard that, I definitely liked what I heard. It did make me nervous that some things might fall apart and the Nintendo we know might change, but I maintained faith. Of course, with this announcement came the whole topic and the idea of working on the mobile and the cell phone side and partnering with DNA and all these things going on. And you realize that there's been huge, monumental business shifts within Nintendo. That's led to a lot of decisions, such as abandoning the Wii U, such as the development of the Switch and what it's supposed to do, the fact that they're working with third parties, and then things like movies, theme parks, and working with Apple. Those are big deals. And it's interesting that it sounds like, per Miyamoto's quote, that he's really involved with that side of things and that he might be kind of stepping away from the game development side, which does make me very sad, but stepping more into a leadership business role with Nintendo, where he's going to be working alongside the likes of Kimishima and who Iwata would have been at that time. Obviously, they worked closely even before, but I feel like now more so than ever, the shifting in what his role seems to be is going to be pretty impactful to Nintendo. And it really, to me, shows that the development internally within Nintendo really could be in for a huge, huge change. And I do think that's good. Look at the Switch. It looks fantastic. It's finally, for the first time in literally a decade since 2006 with the Wii, Nintendo has created a product that is generating buzz across all facets of gaming, all kinds of gamers, and all kinds of non-gamers. They've really created something, and I've mentioned this on many recent videos, really created something that appeals to the broader spectrum of consumer. And that's the key. That's the focus that any company in any field wants to hit. And it's definitely what any gaming company wants. The idea of roping in all these new people who want to play on their product. And the Switch is just perfect for that. And you have to wonder if maybe that was the younger guys coming up with that idea, working with the old guard, the older folks. Obviously, everyone is obviously signing off on these decisions, but I'm sure that they presented the idea of something that they knew that was going to key into what a lot of people who weren't the diehard Nintendo fans really want and find exciting about gaming and gaming hardware. And obviously, they've knocked it out of the park. So I feel like some pretty good decisions are happening here at Nintendo. Now, I do have to say, I don't want Miyamoto to fully step away from game development. I want him to keep making Pikmin. I want him to keep making Star Fox. Miyamoto, keep making Star Fox, man. Just because Star Fox Zero didn't work out, it's because you tried some crazy shit. Don't try crazy shit. Make a Star Fox game the way we want, and I feel like it'll sell. So just please don't give up on Star Fox yet. Anyway, I do want Miyamoto to keep making games. I want him to keep making new IPs. I want him to work. He was instrumental in how Retro designed Metroid Prime, my all-time favorite game. Miyamoto had a serious footprint and impact on my favorite game of all time. I don't ever want that guy to stop making games. So I hope that he's not fully stepping away from the development side, but I have a feeling that over the course of the next several years, maybe even 10 years, he might. He really might be, because he's working on this side that's generating all this new excitement and money for Nintendo, building theme parks, licensing out for film, working with Apple for partnerships, and creating cell phone games. All this stuff is so hugely important for Nintendo and is going to make them a bigger and better company. And Miyamoto's been instrumental in that as well, it sounds like. And I'm sure he's going to continue to do so. He might also just be tired of making games. I'll leave this video with this last sentiment. It's possible that Miyamoto is kind of he's done it. You know, he's obviously done more than his fair share. He's shaped and saved the industry, literally, if you go back to the 1980s. His successful ideas in games, and Nintendo as a successful company, saved the video game industry from never coming back and never existing as what it is today. And when you look at all the great games he's created, the characters he's created, the games and sequels he's developed, and how many times he has consistently helped pump out amazing, top-notch, AAA, perfect 10 quality content, you can kind of say the man has paid his dues. I mean, really, if he wanted to step away from game development because he's motivated to step away from it and he's creatively not into it anymore, you have to give him that space, and I have to give him that right. I only want people creating any kind of art, and I say this as a professional musician as well, of course, whether it's music, whether it's video games, whether it's movies, whether it's writing a book as an author, whether it's painting, if you're not creatively motivated to do those things, don't do them. Because if you force it, it's going to come through in your final product and people are going to smell out that bullshit. That's just what fans do, especially in the gaming world. We're very savvy nerds out here playing all these video games, and we will know if you're half-assing it and phoning it in. Half-assing it and phoning it in. We'll know that. And that's not going to make anyone happy, and it's not going to lead to successful games and more money for your company. So I want Miyamoto to do what Miyamoto wants to do. If it's stepping into the business side, great. If it's developing more games and hardware, great. If it's both, hey man, if you got the time to do both, you have at it. I trust you. I trust Miyamoto implicitly, despite the fact that my mouth isn't working today. And I would just like him to do whatever he wants to do. But I really hope that he still wants to make video games. Give us Pikmin 4, give us Star Fox Miyamoto. I know you can do it. So that's what's going on with Miyamoto and Nintendo today. Pretty interesting quote, interesting ideas. What do you think about what I discussed? Do you see his quotes as ideas indicating that he might be stepping away from the game development side and focusing more on the business side going forward? Do you think it's all just coincidental with how all the business moves from Nintendo are playing out right now? Maybe there's nothing to it. Maybe there is something to it. What do you think about the young guys picking up development on Nintendo's new console? Pretty interesting stuff. And hey, so far they seem to be knocking it out of the park. That's what I think. So that's what's going on today, guys. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in. This is Rob of Rule 2 Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.